When it comes to Father's Day, some things never change. Dads want steak. In fact, 75% of Americans say there's no better way to celebrate than grilling with the family. That's why I'm giving my dad Omaha Steaks, the original butcher, trusted since 1917. Their steaks are aged for tenderness, hand-cut by master butchers, and full of rich, beefy flavor. I recently tried their filet mignon in all-new smash burgers. Incredible quality and so easy to prepare. Whether it's beef, burgers, chicken, or seafood, every bite is backed by their 100% money-back guarantee. This Father's Day, give Dad the world's best steak experience with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for guaranteed perfect gifts that deliver legendary quality. And for an extra $35 off, use promo code FLAVOR at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com and an extra $35 off with promo code FLAVOR at checkout. See site for details.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
The Agile brand.
Welcome to the B2B Agility Podcast, where we look at the factors that drive success in B2B marketing, with a focus on the people, processes, data, and platforms that make B2B brands stand out and thrive in a competitive marketplace. I'm your host, Greg Kihlstrom, advising Fortune 1000 brands on MarTech, marketing operations, and CX, best-selling author and speaker. Now let's get on to the show. Customer onboarding is often where good intentions end up with less than stellar execution. Delays, confusion, and misalignment derail even the most promising new relationships. Why is onboarding still broken in so many organizations, and how is AI finally changing that? Today, I'm joined by Srikrishnan Ganesan, founder and CEO of Rocketlane, a platform that's redefining customer onboarding and project delivery. From AI-driven tools to cross-functional collaboration, Rocketlane is helping teams implement faster, operate smarter, and retain customers better. Srikrishnan's here to talk about the future of onboarding operations and the role of technology in scaling both customer satisfaction and internal success. Srikrishnan, welcome to the show.
Hey, Greg. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah. Looking forward to talking about this with you. Before we dive in, why don't we start with you giving a little background on yourself and your role at Rocketlane?
Yeah, sure. I'm the founder and CEO of Rocketlane. This is my second SaaS startup venture. Previously did one from 2012 to 2015. Got acquired by a company called Freshworks. Spent 4.5 years there learning how a SaaS company can scale really, really well. Freshworks eventually went IPO. Inspired by that journey, came out with the same two co-founders to start Rocketlane.
Great. So yeah, we're going to talk about a few things here, but I want to start with just talking about customer onboarding. And I know I've certainly been through some of the pains of the onboarding process and things. So why don't you talk a little bit about, what inspired you to tackle customer onboarding and, as the problem that Rocketlane solves?
Sure. I would rephrase it in a way to say, probably customer onboarding was the starting point of what we started to solve, but we always saw this as a bigger area that we can eventually focus on. So the problem stems from looking back at our previous journey and saying, what felt broken? And we identified a bunch of things. One of those was when we looked at our own internal implementation and professional services team at Freshworks, where we got acquired and we were running our business unit within Freshworks. Yeah. I felt this was an area where it was really crucial that we get things right, because our customers, whether they continue to work with us, expand their partnership with us, or they look to churn at the first opportunity they get, it really felt like that depended on how we cemented their belief about the partnership. And another founder recently told me this interesting thing, that they look at implementation or onboarding as the second sale that you're doing. So you first sold, you signed a contract, but you need to sell again in a way. This time you're not selling your product, but you're in a way selling what it's like to work with you. You're selling the partnership experience, saying, hey, here's how it feels to work with our company. So do more business with us, expand your partnership. And we felt this was critical enough for most tech and SaaS companies, and even for services companies that do implementation type work, etc. And looked at the category. We saw that people were using spreadsheets, horizontal project management tools, a category of tools called PSA, professional services automation, to track their efforts, project profitability, etc. We felt if we create something that is a lot more all-in-one and start with a focus on onboarding or implementation teams and expand into every kind of professional services team that runs project-based services, then we have a huge market and we have a real problem to solve, which is how do we make these services consistent in how they're delivered? How do we help ensure that leadership inside the company is always on top of things, gets proactive alerts, proactive governance versus reactive? We felt there's a lot of problems to solve, so we picked this space.
Yeah. So, can you talk a little bit about the component of this? How are AI-driven tools helping to transform some of the things that you're talking about, and what impact are you seeing on implementation speed, retention rates, all of that in relation to adding AI into the mix?
Right. I think there's many areas where you can apply AI within this world that we're talking about, right? One is, I would say the low-hanging fruit is there is work around work. How do I, and I'm going to, broaden this from just AI to AI and automation, because I feel what is of essence today is how can we get teams to radical efficiency, whether it's, AI at the core of it or automation or a mix of both, doesn't matter.
Sure.
But how do we ensure that the follow-ups, the nudges are happening in the most efficient way to ensure projects are on track? How do we surface problems sooner so that leadership is not waiting for someone to raise the hand and say, hey, I have a problem in this account, which doesn't happen often. People try to be the hero and solve the problem on their own. But if a system says, hey, there is a problem here, leader, you need to pay attention. And this can be, hey, you're burning budget on this project faster than you should. It could be there is a schedule or timeline issue with this onboarding. It could be a scope issue where once you start onboarding, sometimes customers start giving you more and more requirements that need to be fulfilled, and that process doesn't stop. It could be customer sentiment issues that implementation manager, onboarding manager may not even be aware of, that they're not being perceived as being on top of things, or they're not being perceived as giving a great experience to the customer. But if the system detects this, pushes the information to the leader to say, hey, we need your intervention here, let's escalate the partnership quickly and solve problems. That's a huge area where I think AI and automation can play a big role in bringing those early warnings and governance automations into play.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of work that happens in any implementation project, right? So you're looking at people getting on tons of meetings, creating documents after those meetings, crafting various kinds of deliverables, configuring systems based on what solutions were agreed upon, communicating constantly to the customer as well, saying, hey, here's the progress we've made, here's what's coming up next, here's what we need from you. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of scope for what AI is able to do in all of these areas. It used to be, till a few months ago, I would have said, hey, there is certain areas where AI can play a role, which is more the repeat tasks, the mundane, etc. But now it feels like AI can play a role even in the most intelligent tasks that you need to do, where you can partner with an agent to do that work. And that's what we are enabling, right? We're bringing this sort of AI workforce for implementation teams, PS teams, for being co-workers alongside your team to get part of the work done. Starting with, I would say the biggest thing we launched so far is like a AI scribe that is listening into the calls that you're on with customers. And there's a lot of post-call busy work, whether it's creating a document, drafting an email, etc. And what you need to pull from different kinds of meetings is different. A requirements meeting versus a solutioning meeting versus a pre-go live meeting, the takeaways, the granularity at which you need to document things, what you need to send as an email, all of that is different. And we are allowing people to use that level of templating to say, here's what I need to glean from different kinds of calls, automate that whole process.
Well, yeah, and a key part of that is the you mentioned like the partnership or the working alongside, so it's not AI completely replace. I think it's AI maybe replacing some of the parts of the work that humans don't do well, or it's inefficient for them to do. But there's this partnership component, which can do a lot of things, a lot of good things, but one of those is just helping operations to scale, right? So, I mean, when you have AI that is able to do that, but also keeping humans in the loop, you're able to kind of balance the two, right? You kind of get the best of both worlds. Can you talk a little bit about, how you've seen that done well, streamlining and optimizing without losing the good human part of that?
Yeah, I think humans bring the deep context and knowledge that is needed to do a job. And when they're able to share that knowledge with AI, when they're able to document more, when they're able to teach AI more, I think it's able to pick on more of the work that you need to do. At the same time, you're able to be that human in the loop that's checking, verifying, hey, did AI get it right? Thereby, in a way, shrinking timelines, right? Because the same work for a human to do versus for an agent to do, an AI agent to do, probably the AI agent will do things faster.
Right.
And that gives you the opportunity to say, okay, let me review what's been done. Let me iterate on it. Sometimes maybe you need to iterate on it a few times to get it right.
Yeah.
But once you start getting it right, once you start figuring out, hey, here's how I need to automate this part of the work. Here is how I'm going to teach AI to do this role better. Then it's going to take away from it and really start doing a better job from the next time. And I think that partnership where human is playing the role of I'm checking, I'm teaching, I'm documenting, and then AI is speaking on the actual doing of the work is a good partnership. And I don't think this stops in saying, okay, now AI knows everything. It's always there's opportunity for incremental, how can we do things better? So I think the more we as humans learn how best to work with AI, right? Like, are all of our team members trying out new things? Are all of our team members, learning how to prompt better, learning how to provide better context, learning how to, build new systems using all of the new tools that are coming out in the market? I think that's going to lead to more innovation, more, I would say, crunching of timelines to deliver on something for a customer, and thereby, I think, better results for the company. Because what we've seen is when you get to that radical efficiency, when you start shrinking timelines for the customer, the appetite for the work that you're doing goes up. So it's not necessary that here's the pie of work and part of it is done by AI, part of it done by humans, so number of humans needed is less. Instead, this pie of work itself is going to grow, because if you say the cost of doing this work is lesser, or the time that you need to deliver on this project became 1/3, there's so many more companies that are going to say, hey, I want this too, because you're able to deliver fast, my risk is reduced, I have the appetite for this project now.
Yeah. What maybe hurdles or even misconceptions do you see that, I mean, because, I think what you're saying makes a ton of sense. And I think, those that are keeping up with this have probably, are probably on the same page, but yet, they run into hurdles, or they may come into things with the wrong ideas or assumptions. What would you say to those leaders that, what should they keep in mind that maybe others get wrong at first?
I think a few things I would say. One is, if there is an enterprise-wide system and you're constrained by, hey, that's the only system you should use, then you're probably playing it wrong. You need to battle it out with your IT leadership or whoever to get like a wider playground of tools that you can use. And because I think the strengths of different tools are different. And you want to be experimenting with what's out there to see where you can optimize. The second thing I would say is enable your team to run any number of experiments, right? I think if we sequence things the way we used to, saying, okay, let's pick only this project versus that. For this quarter, we do only 2 projects. Then I think you're denying yourself the opportunity to learn at a faster pace and evolve as an organization. Enable more people to experiment and have clear ways of measuring what's working, what's not. And I would say where it makes sense, even carve out time for some of the team members who show a lot of inclination towards trying out and testing out new tools and who are good with that sort of thing, right? So I think if you're always fighting for time, if you're always on the back foot with customers, you're not able to make time for something like this, then maybe even hire an extra individual to take on this sort of effort of putting in AI and automation for the team, or borrow a resource from like your IT organization internally to get that going. I would say, place where people typically, I would say, go wrong is they're not thinking big enough. They're thinking more small incremental things versus, hey, how do I create radical efficiency? How do I automate 70% of the work we're doing?
Yeah.
That should be the goal. And then when you start thinking with that lens, I think you will find ways to do that. If you're constraining yourself with, okay, here's the mundane, repeatable work, let me automate what is low-hanging fruit, then you'll never get to greatness in what you can achieve with AI.
Yeah. So what would you recommend as far as like, how do you measure success here? Like what's either the metrics, or how should leaders be looking at ROI when we're talking about, I mean, a lot of this is better collaboration, better, whether it's onboarding, project delivery, all of that kind of stuff. Like what's a good way to think about measurement and in that?
Yeah, the way I would look at it is, one, the obvious one is time saving, right? Like document how much time it took to do something manually, and now with AI, how you're able to shrink that effort that's spent. 2 is duration shrinkage. So time saving is like the effort saved. It took someone 3 hours versus now it's done in 5 minutes. Yeah. The other part, duration, is more of, it took us 3 weeks to do this versus now it's happening in 1 week, like overall project timeline shrinkage. The other aspect I would say is, what are the things that you weren't able to do that you're now able to do? Or you were doing it only for, let's say, for onboarding a team, for an onboarding team. If you were running projects a certain way, checking things a certain way for your top 5 projects, but you weren't able to have the bandwidth to do that for the next 100, are you with AI able to do things that you weren't enabled to do before? And what is the impact of that, right? If I have the right governance for all my projects, then does that increase on-time delivery by X percentage? Does it increase customer satisfaction by X percentage? So those are the things you may want to measure.
Got it. Well, thanks so much for joining today. As we wrap up here, I've got one last question for you that I like to ask everybody here. What do you do to stay agile in your role, and how do you find a way to do it consistently?
I think for me, it's about connecting with other founders. Sometimes founders who are at around the same, revenue scale or org scale as us. Sometimes it's founders that have seen a different scale already. And sometimes it's also founders who aren't at your scale yet, but are doing things differently. I, look at, I follow a bunch of people on LinkedIn, but I also try to connect live wherever possible, meet people in person and learn from their experiences. What do I want to borrow as an idea that someone else is doing well, and then take it to our org. I also consider a few people as mentors. So I do connect with some of them from time to time to share what I'm up to, have them challenge me a little about, how we're doing things, and see where we can get better.
Yeah, love it. Well, again, I'd like to thank Srikrishnan Ganesan, co-founder and CEO of Rocketlane, for joining the show. You can learn more about Srikrishnan and Rocketlane by following the links in the show notes.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks again for listening to the B2B Agility Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to subscribe and leave us a rating so that others can find the show more easily. You can access more episodes of the show at www.b2bagility.com. That's b2bagility.com. While you're there, check out my series of best-selling Agile brand guides covering a wide variety of marketing technology topics, or you can search for Greg Kihlstrom on Amazon. Until next time, stay focused and stay agile.
The Agile Brand.